Miami, 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 Miami. It feels like Miami.
That's perfect.
All right, welcome to the Heat Beat podcast. I am Brian Goins, not Giancarlo Navas today. He took, I think he just took a day off. He just needed a day off. I think he went to Tampa for the day. I think he was trying to do something for his sister, like a favor or something. I don't know what happened, to be honest. But I'm here. He asked me to fill in. I said yes. All of us are on here because there's a lot to talk about still with Miami Heat, even if Gianni's not here. So we keep the show going on. Next man up. With me today, we got Kenny. How you doing, Kenny? 16 Techs? Or how do you want to be mentioned on this?
You can say my real name, Kenny Spence.
Kenny Spence? All right, let's do that.
Yeah.
Kenny Spence. How are you today?
Yeah, I'm good, man. We do have a lot to discuss, man. This is the first main pod since a whole bunch of stuff has happened since then. He's on a 3-game losing streak. We got to put some things in perspective, and so I'm ready for that.
I agree. And then next up, we got Franky G, our 2K coach. How you doing, Franky?
And Street Beat co-founder. I got.
Oh, my bad. You know, that's right. My fault. That's my fault. It's only like the third time hosting within the last calendar year, so you gotta give me some
No, you're good, Brian. And you also forgot my underscore. It's Franky G _ on Twitter. Don't worry about it. The indispensable Kenny Spence is how we should call him.
Yeah,
I like that.
Getting a nickname.
I like it a lot.
Just came up with it. I'm excited for this show. Great game from Bam. Not much else to take from it. But I mean, there was a lot to talk about, and we'll get to it. So I'm excited to be here.
All right. Well, I got a couple topics. We can cycle through one in particular. I don't know if that's something you want to start off with, but obviously there's a lot to talk about in terms of the Heat's half-court offense in clutch. I got other topics like Bam's offensive aggressiveness from last night's game against the Raptors. Obviously, you guys touched on it quite a bit on Hangover Time last night, but there's still quite a bit we could probably still discuss in regards to, what Bam could look like going forward after that, pretty refreshing performance. But I think what I want to talk about is some Victor Oladipo. Because I think that clip from last night, if it wasn't for Bam's performance, that was the leading story from yesterday.
Yeah.
So I think we should talk about Victor first. And I will get the clip up in just a second, but I actually want to just go to you, Kenny. Seeing that first clip on social media, your first reaction, because I know you've seen a couple clips in the past, and I know you chimed in like, oh, what's Victor's updates? What's he doing? So you see that clip yesterday. Your first reaction is what?
That reverse oop. I mean, we've seen the warm-ups, the little sky hooks and stuff, and it seemed like he was getting his legs under him and kind of just figuring things out again. But for him to be out there catching lobs now, even if it is just in practice, off the injury he had and actually being injured the past 2-3 years with a leg injury, to reverse that easily, I'm excited about it. It seems like he's healthier than he's ever been. He wasn't doing that when he came back in Indiana. He wasn't doing that in Houston. And so now you see him doing it in Miami. Yeah, I don't know if you want to put a clip up there, but man, he's moving comfortably. It doesn't look like he's favoring the leg.
Look at that dunk, man. We got to go back and look at that one more time. But that reverse,
yeah,
the jump shot looks really nice. It looks a lot more smooth than it looked like last year. He had a really random, I don't know if it was because of his issue with his legs or not, or his knee really, but it seems like he's planting himself better when he goes off for his jump shot.
Yeah.
He doesn't look like he's favoring one side or the other right now. So I'm actually going to replay this one more time. So obviously we got this reverse dunk.
Easy.
Smooth.
A couple drive-in layups right here.
Yeah.
And that leg, notice he
Nice
took off on an injured leg too.
Yep.
That right there, though, the change in direction, the comfort with that's important also.
Yeah, because he's trusting it. He's not hesitating. Because when you're coming off an injury like that, if you start hesitating and you don't trust this,
you end up hurting yourself again. Yeah.
And like somebody pulled the clip of him not getting by UD on that. it's all like when you're playing a 2-on-2 like this and you're coming back from injury, you're trying to get back in game shots. He's gonna take those. He's gonna need to hit that game fadeaway and stuff. He needs to hit that shot. So he's practicing that. Like that's not what you take from that. Like I know people want to make jokes, but I'm excited for Depot, man. I think Depot couldn't really. I've thought about it since last year, since it was rumored that they were gonna try to get him. I just think Depot unlocks something the Heat don't have.
It was reported by Barry Jackson, Miami Herald, that he's expected possibly to come back by the end of February.
Hell yeah.
So obviously we're in the month of February. It's February 2nd right now. I think he quoted Haslam in that story. I think someone else on the team too, basically saying that he looks a lot better than he did the last season. He's practicing pretty much with the team now. So he's no longer just doing individual drills. He's actually, practicing when he can, obviously when the team has some off days and they're not just coming off a back-to-back where they have like those random day offs and they don't really do anything in practice besides look at some film. So it seems like he's coming along a lot better than he did last year. Obviously, we got him like at the trade deadline last year. So if he comes back around the same time, I'm really curious to see what his impact looks like this season than he did last season when he came in around the same time, last year. Because it's looking like he'll probably come around the trade deadline, which trade deadline is like February 10th this year. Mm-hmm. All-Star breaks February 23rd or 24th. So he's got some time to come back and he'll even have like a week of rest. So even if like he plays a couple games, he gets a week of rest with the All-Star break. I think that might be good if they give him like 2 games maybe before the All-Star break. So he can at least get some game reps in. And then obviously he has that break, comes back, and then, obviously you give him more minutes and who knows, maybe he'll eventually start if they do make a trade. Who knows what's going to happen in the trade deadline. I know there's a lot of discussion out there on the timeline. We'll get into that later, but it is something to think about. Like if you do see the Oladipo that, we think we can get, that's better than the Oladipo we saw last year, who was already starting to begin with before he got injured in that Laker game. I don't know, man. I know you guys talked about in Hangover Time, but like, it's kind of hard not to play that guy.
And the thing you got to remember too about last year is amazing as he was on defense, he was also injured. And so what we saw and what we were impressed by, it wasn't even his full potential defensively. And so now you have, and he's not making up for Kendrick Nunn. Well, he didn't really play with Kendrick Nunn, but Tyler Hero's mistakes. It's going to be Kyle, him, Jimmy, Bam, and PJ. No. And so I don't know how you score on that. And now with him being fully healthy, like he hasn't, because I was critical of his efficiency, but it was due to injury a lot of time. And so now if he can come back and be a little more efficient, get around 43% from the field, I'm fine with. That'll unlock more on the offense. He can get to the basket, the little mid-range pull-up. He's a pretty good three-point shooter. I think he was at 40% last season. Surprisingly, I did not know that. But, man, he unlocks a whole bunch of stuff with this team. And now we're seeing the guys who helped a ton sort of petering out and going back to reality, whether that's from being on a scouting report or just adjusting to what they're going back to their old roles. He may come in and make some real noise.
He shot 32% when he was with the Rockets from 3 last season, 23.5% of the Heat, but that was in 4 games. So he wasn't great. He wasn't like a great three-point shooter, but the year before he did shoot 36%, which honestly for what he does, he's not obviously like a known three-point shooter, but if he can get you above league average, which right now is like 33 or 34%, because everybody's pretty much in a shooting slump. So if he can shoot around 35, 36%, that's pretty much exactly what Caleb Martin's giving you. And I think what Oladipo gives you more than what him is he gives you that dribble penetration that they don't have really on this team outside of Jimmy. Yeah. Obviously, we saw Bam yesterday show a little bit of that. But I feel like, and we'll talk about this probably right after this conversation, but I think what we saw with Bam had more to do with what Toronto was doing on defense than more than what Bam was doing on offense.
Yeah.
So, Franky, I want you to respond to that.
So, first off on Depot, definitely brings the ball handling, the pick and roll chops, can play make and feed Bam, knows his spots. I like Kenny bringing up the efficiency, but and especially since Depot won't have to be an 18, 20 point per game scorer here. He can take the pressure off of Tyler. He can take pressure off Jimmy and Bam and Kyle too. Because one of my biggest concerns has been in those in the playoffs when Kyle, we expect Kyle to play like 36 plus, but those 12 minutes, those 10, 12 minutes, how are we going to look? What are we doing? What are we running? Like, who's handling the offense? That's what we need to figure out. Because in an ideal world, Kyle is not playing 40 minutes in the playoffs. Unless, like, it's game 7, we absolutely have to, or something like that.
Well,
But,
they
like,
gradually get there, don't they? Normally in the playoffs, like the first 2 series, you don't play 40 minutes right away, obviously, unless
Right.
like you really need to like come back from like a game 6 or 7 or something like that, or you're trying not to like fall 3-1 behind in a series or something like that.
Right,
And
right,
yeah, I can see them playing that many minutes, but ideally you don't want them playing more than like maybe 34, 35, 36 to begin the first round. Obviously, if Miami gets like the 1 or 2 seed and they get a favorable 7-8 matchup, you probably will want to rest as much as you can. I know there was, I think, game 4 in that bubble run against the Pacers. I don't even think Jimmy played that game in game 4. So there might be games like that if they're up in the early round of the playoffs where you want to try to get guys like Lowry, Bam, Jimmy, Russ, and who knows how many minutes they're going to be playing up until the end stretch of this regular season, because obviously you see how close the 1 through 6 seeds are in the East. I kind of think that they might be trying to gun for one of those top 2 to 3 seeds so they can avoid a possible Brooklyn and Milwaukee matchup in the second round, if possible. If they can try to save one of those 2 teams, towards the Eastern Conference Finals. Hell, if they could just find a path where they only have to play one of them, even if they have to play them in the second round, but they just find a path where they only have to play one of those 2 teams, in their bracket, I think that might push the Heat to play a lot of these guys more minutes than they probably would like towards the end of the regular season.
Yeah, but my main point is just off when he's off the court, regardless if he's playing. If it's 8 minutes, if it's 12 minutes, he's not playing. They can't get blitzed. That could be the difference in a game, difference in a series. It's the off the floor Kyle minutes. We've seen how they've played well for the most part before this 3-game stretch. They were playing well. You drop 2 close ones to Toronto. You win those 2. You win one of those 2 versus Toronto. It's a different. We're not talking about trades as much. We're not as concerned. But they still haven't really figured out the half court issue. And Oladipo could, if he's healthy and available, and if he has some of that pick and roll, like he doesn't need to be 100%. You can get 80% of Oladipo with what you already have with Kyle, and that could be the real difference in the playoffs. Like, you're not getting Kyrie at home for Brooklyn. They're KD and Harden are both fragile, that they can get injured anyway. You have Milwaukee still missing Brook Lopez, and they're a completely different team without him.
Yep.
Like, this thing is wide open. Like, yeah, the Heat have holes, and they need to figure out those holes because they can get exposed. Those holes that the Heat have right now can get exposed in the playoff round. But other teams have holes too, and we'll talk about the trades and stuff. But internally, Oladipo can fix a lot of the problems that they have right now.
In terms of what we were talking about Lowry, here's actually another update because we just talked about Oladipo, but obviously Lowry's been out for the last almost 3 weeks for personal reasons. There was a tweet that our women posted, I think it was today. Yeah, today there was an update sort of on Lowry's status. So the word in Toronto on Tuesday was that Kyle Lowry could be back soon with the Heat. He has been away for a family matter. Heat played Thursday in San Antonio, Saturday in Charlotte. So obviously the Heat are on a 6-game road trip. He'd have to fly out from wherever he's at. I have no idea where he's actually located. He might be in Philadelphia right now because I think that's where most of his family resides. What happened?
Breaking news. He just tweeted Kyle, Jimmy, PJ, Caleb are all questionable for tomorrow.
Oh,
wow.
Okay.
Wow, that was like literally breaking news
together
on our actual podcast. That's pretty cool. Let me find that tweet then, because I literally just searched Lowry like 2 seconds ago, so I did not see that tweet pop up. And the latest
alert right now from the Heat.
Let's get that up. Let's see if you guys are right. I don't care about you, DK Nation. Oh yeah, our women just posted. Kyle Lowry upgraded questionable for Thursday in San Antonio. That's pretty good news.
Then typically with the Heat this season, when somebody's questionable, they end up playing.
Yeah.
And so
I mean, he's not even hurt. So if he's questionable, it's probably just make sure that he makes his flight. Because obviously there's a lot of flight delays with the snowstorm that's going through the country right now. So.
And the game's in Texas too, so we'll
see if he can make the flight to get there in time. But that's great news. I mean, Kenny, this 3-game losing streak. Miami goes on this 3-game losing streak for the second time this season. You're like seeing Lowry come back. Do you think part of the reason why he came back early is because Miami is now, in a little bit of a skid?
No, I don't think that. And so any personal reason somebody's out for that long, I'm sure something serious in basketball always going to come second. I think it may just be time for him to. He just wants to come back. I think he's just ready now, and it's great to see. I mean, I'm not the type to overreact to games anyway, and so the two Toronto games could have gone either way. So I'm not really concerned with that. The Boston game was a little embarrassing, but at the same time, you had no Kyle, no Jimmy, you had no playmaking, and so. I think Kyle understands that. I don't think there's any real concern. I don't think there's any real concern with that.
Right. Yeah, and I say about them need to figure out those minutes, but if for any reason Kyle goes down, Jimmy goes down, they're not winning, and that's the same. That's true for most teams. If you lose one of your three best players, it's gonna be hard to win. If the Bucks lose Drew Holiday. If Kyrie doesn't get vaccinated, it's a different story, we don't all these teams have those question marks, and the Heat's biggest question mark has been health outside of their on the court stuff.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah, and so that's what I wanted to say too. We can't live in constant fear with one of the better teams we've seen in years. Like you said, every team has holes. Every team. Obviously, if one or two of your best players get injured, there's a problem. And so, look, the best thing you can do is just be good enough to contend for a championship and see what happens. Nobody had Phoenix in the finals last year before they got there. And so it's just you have to go ahead and you have to just see how things play out before you come to these conclusions. And just enjoy the moment.
Yeah, just have fun. There's a time to be upset and panicking. No, he's just old and there sometimes.
So Blotter 44, because obviously for the podcast audience, it doesn't know what's going on. We have a commenter saying that Franky's dog is taking a shit in the middle of our podcast. I don't know if that's true or not. Can you take a look?
I can smell that he didn't. His shit stink. He did not take a shit. He did not Miami Heat in the playoffs last year.
But yeah, you can't live with that kind of concern 24/7. You can't shake things up after a 3-game losing streak. And what I want to say too, you have to kind of pay attention to how these things end up happening. And so, for example, the first Toronto game, I've said this on air before. Nick Nurse and they're supposed to know each other's plays, and so they had to just let their most reliable scorer score. And so that was Jimmy for the Heat, and that was Gary Trent for Toronto. And we saw that, and we saw that's when we first saw the people being upset about Bam's aggression. But you have Jimmy going like that. It's not the time for Bam to interrupt and try to get his. Jimmy, everything was going right for Jimmy. He got us back into the game and kept us in the game the whole time. You didn't really need Bam to do that. And then last night you saw Toronto's game plan was stop Jimmy, and that opened things up for Bam. Those coast-to-coast dunks, nobody getting in the way. They're worried about Jimmy. Go ahead, Bam, try to beat us. That game plan worked, but we saw what Bam can do when given the opportunity. Most of his points come from being set up, which is not a bad thing. It's just the way the offense runs.
Franky, what was your biggest takeaway from Bam's performance last night?
That he can do it one-on-one, and he was doing it against really good athletic defenders. A lot of Bam's problems have been that when he gets that mismatch, he hasn't been able to score inside. I've said that Bam needs to utilize his speed a lot more and try to blow by guys. The problem is he doesn't have much shake to his handles yet. He needs to use a lot. He needs to work on utilizing his jumper, jab steps. Like Chris Bosh wasn't crossing people up. He was just picking his spots, utilizing his skills that he does have, and getting to his shots like that. Watching Chris Bosh, watching like KG, like how they attacked in the front with the face-up game, I think that's going to change a lot of things. Obviously, a lot of that was the Raptors selling out, trying to take away the shooting and not giving that option and living with them scoring twos. But that it's still a big thing for Bam to be able to just blow by guys from the 3-point line a lot of those times. Like Kenny said about him running in transition, getting easy layups and free throws and stuff. That's something he's got to do a lot more of. The Heat need to look for him. Like it feels like I was the only guy who looks for him in some of those situations. But when he runs down the court and gets to pick up those easy mismatches and those free throws like that's what we love to see.
I wanted to bring this tweet up from Cooper Moorhead. So he did kind of a breakdown with some of the film from last night's game, especially around the fourth quarter when obviously Miami was trying to make a run. I think they brought it down to 3 when I think Toronto went up by almost 8 or 10. Obviously, they went on another run with Gary Trent Jr. basically going just crazy, shooting like isolation 3 after isolation 3 on PJ Tucker's face. But his tweet was basically showing what the defensive scheme was for Toronto, which you've been basically saying that they were going, they're trying to basically cover the 3-point shooter so that Miami couldn't come back from that 2 or 3 possession lead at certain moments of the game. Obviously, this right here is a screen cap from around the 7:40 minute mark. But you can see that what Toronto is doing, what he's tweeting, is that I understand why people get excited about games like the one Bam had last night, but it's important to note the reasons why they often happen. Look at how Toronto's space and floor, wide open lane for Bam to operate. Siakam on the weak block is the only help, and his man scores on the cut. In that possession, he gets a pass to PJ Tucker on the baseline. But have another screen capture we can go to. What was this one? Right here?
Real quick, Brian, before you do that. So in the playoffs,
I'll go back up.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that first screenshot, can you click it so everyone can see it a little better? So you see where I think that's Scotty Barnes at the high post right there.
Yeah.
And that's OG right here. So you see the Heat spacing with Strus and Butler in the playoffs. If Bam goes middle here, that help is gonna come right there because that spacing is terrible. One guy can defend 2, and if Bam tries to throw that up, OG is gonna pick that and go. So that help is gonna come earlier and higher, and that cut isn't even gonna matter. So this is something where the Heat offense, they need to work on their spacing, and it's been a problem with Jimmy and Bam where they kind of get in each other's way. Obviously, this isn't one of the situations, but in a playoff series, this is gonna get scouted, and if they make this kind of mistake, that it's gonna be points the other way.
Yeah, I do want to say too. We do have to credit Bam for taking advantage of this space also. Yeah. And I mean, it's not as simple as just throwing out, he's got to be assertive. See, he was assertive, look at the points. It is more about making reads also, and Alf had a great point. It is up to Bam to make these reads. Sometimes I understand he has the opportunity to score, but it's not necessarily him creating his own shot and having to do what it is people would demand him to do. It's just he has to make the reads and he has to take advantage of what he does get.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing that I saw from Bam last night is that he didn't seem like he was hesitating a lot like he usually does when he gets the ball in his hands. He kind of just read and react, and he put his head down and just tried to go as hard as he could to the paint. And a lot of those times, especially in the fast break, he was able to get and pretty much within 3 feet, and he was able to dunk quite a few of those possessions. At times where I didn't think he was even able to get a shot off, and he was able to just, jump off 1 or 2 feet. And I felt like at certain points, he might get a charge at this specific moment. And it basically just an offensive foul the other way. But I think some of the things that we saw from Bam were things that we haven't seen a lot this season. I think some of those drives were kind of similar to what we saw in that Boston series.
Yeah. But
I think the biggest thing with Bam, and I think one of his skill sets obviously is his speed.
Yeah.
The only thing is I wish Bam, and it's something that I've noticed a lot, especially like in that Boston game where he kind of just wasn't looking like himself. And obviously a lot of it is because a lot of people aren't helping him play make to get some of the easier shots that he can normally get. So a lot of these shots, as we mentioned before, are unassisted shots. I think this is one of his, pretty much from his entire career, he's getting more shot attempts up, but all these shots he's putting up by far unassisted. So it's not helping his efficiency whatsoever. But in these situations where he has a clear path to the basket, he needs to take advantage of it every single time.
Yeah.
Because what happens is you get the help defender in the lane, and then you have a wide open corner 3 to whoever's in the corner, whatever it's PJ Tucker.
A lot of times PJ.
Yeah. A lot of times PJ, and he can also slip those baseline plays, and he can get a comfortable floater or a reverse layup, in the baseline, or better yet, like they have some possessions where they can kick out again, basically from the baseline, and then they have a wide open person, on either wing. So I think as long as the Heat can continue to try to figure out a way to, kind of do a driving kick offense, because it's something that was working really well during that 30-11 run with Dion and Goran, if we remember. Like, that team did not have a lot of great playmakers, but what they did do really well in that offense and what helped them, during that entire winning streak for that second half of the season was they had a drive and kick offense going at a remarkable rate. And obviously we know this team has 3-point shooters, probably one of the best 3-point shooting team that they've had in quite a few years. So if they could somehow use Jimmy and Bam as those kind of players where they're not just, taking up the same spots down low, where they can actually just drive and kick. And obviously it's going to be weird when Lowry comes back, because then you don't know what Lowry's role is in those situations if he doesn't have the ball in his hands. But I think those are ways that you can kind of utilize Bam and Jimmy in ways that doesn't just rely on them having to take, very contested shots at the end of possessions.
Yeah, for sure. But in order to do that drive and kick offense, which was one of my favorite years of watching the Heat offensively from just a pure stylistic point of view, the thing was their decisiveness was that it was catch the ball, shoot, put it up, get a screen, and go. Yeah. Like it was kick it out. The next guy does the same thing. He's decisive. Jimmy likes to catch and hold. Yeah, and Jimmy likes to look for his spots and slow the tempo down. And the team doesn't play as well like that. And Bam has to get back to playing, has to play more off the ball and get like pick and rolls in order to play like that again. When he's doing DHOs, the offense is not driving, kick, and go. It's read and react. And that's where the style has to adjust. And your two biggest stars have to make a big adjustment there.
But I do think all in all, Kyle kind of fixes all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I get the concern, but we do have, I'd say, still one of the better point guards in the league, and less of a dying breed, honestly. We don't get too many Kyle Lowry type point guards anymore. It's usually shoot first, and so this like master facilitator that he is, that helps his team perfectly. Now Jimmy doesn't have to do all this ball handling, also worry about scoring, also worry about being this amazing defender, and also rebound and all these different things. Kyle takes a lot of that pressure off of them with his playmaking, with his defense, those hit-ahead passes that we really miss right now. And so right now we can analyze this stuff, and they do have holes. We understand that. I think I've seen criticism of us like saying like ignoring the team's holes, and that's not even true. But the team does have holes, but Kyle Lowry plugs a lot of them. And so I think at the end of the day, it'll be pretty fine.
Yeah.
Shout out to Ryan. I'm trying to pronounce your last name. If I get it wrong, I'm sorry. Ryan Sproverio. I hope I got that right. If I didn't, I'm sorry. He subbed for 4 months with Prime. He said, thanks for all the great content. You guys are the best. I think we also had another subscriber earlier in the show.
Let me pull that up.
Oh, yeah. Only Glasses subbed again. I think this is his or hers 20th sub so far in this calendar month. So shout out to Only Glasses too. I know you've been subbing a lot on Hangover Time, so I appreciate the sub also on the Miami Heat Beat podcast, because obviously we gotta spread the love. Can't just sub all in one show. We gotta spread the love between all three family brands.
And I got some numbers here to pull up that I pulled up from Cleaning the Glass.
Go for it.
Real quick. Just about Bam. He's shooting in line mostly like with last year. His last year at the rim, he shot 75%. He's shooting 73%. From long mid-range, he's shooting 40% this year. He shot 41% last year. Not much difference. The biggest difference is the short mid-range jumper, the 3 to 10. He shot 46% last year. He's shooting 35% this year. You figure he's shot over 40% from 3 to 10 feet every year besides his rookie year. You figure that to get corrected over the long term, and then his efficiency numbers will be a lot better. And a lot of that has to do with his post ups. He's taking more post ups than ever. I'm trying to pull up how many post ups he's taken for the most part for this year compared to other years. But just from the eye test, I believe on Instat, his post up was the most action, his most used play type. this year, more than pick and rolls, which is the opposite of what we want. Got a point.
Yeah, it's a little weird.
We don't use it enough. Part of that is also the availability. They haven't. I think it was something like Jimmy, Kyle, and Bam haven't played in the same game in 2 months.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So that's something. Bam's had to play without Kyle. Kyle's had to play without Bam. I think that'll correct itself.
If you think about it, Bam came back against that Raptors game at home.
That's right when Kyle left.
And that was right when Kyle, took his leave of absence for personal reasons. So, and Bam was already out for 6 weeks at that point. And now you're adding an extra, 2.5, almost 3 weeks. So yeah, it's been probably almost longer than 2 months at this point.
Yeah.
It's crazy that we haven't seen this trio in such a long period of games and performance. And we're still number one seed up until 2 days ago. So I think go ahead.
And so I do want to say too I'm sorry to cut you off. I do want to say too about Bam's post-ups. We do have to be a little patient about his efficiency with that because like Franky said, he is pretty new to it. Mm-hmm. And that's not a play style players really grow up playing anymore. And so, while it is frustrating and it is easy to say you're 6'9", you have a guard and just post him up, turn around and score. It sounds easy, but Bam's a 24-year-old freak athlete. He's never had to post up before until now. And I mean, LeBron didn't really know how to post up until he was 26, 27. And so I think we do have to be a little patient with Bam as far as that goes. He's getting his reps. He's gonna get it together. We just have to be a little patient with it.
Exactly. You got to take some of the growing pains. You've seen even Tyler. Tyler got off to a blistering start. He's come back down to earth a lot. He's being scouted better. He's being defended differently, and he's struggling lately. Mm-hmm. Tyler will get through that. He will fix that. He's a good player. He's smart and super talented. These guys. This is what happens when you have young guys. There's gonna be some growing pains. And, it sucks because your point guard is 35, 36 years old. Your best player is over 32. Like, you need to, like you're trying to win now. But your two most important players besides Depot, they need to grow and get through some of this stuff. And that's part of this team. Like, this team is built this way. And we'll talk about the elephant in the room and but I don't think there's anything out there externally that's gonna make the difference right now.
And so too with Bam and Tyler's development, that's why they have the roles they have. That's why Tyler's coming off the bench, and that's why they're not rolling the ball out to Bam and saying, "Give us 30, take 17 shots." They have the development to do, but they are great at what they do right now, and they contribute a ton. And so as of right now, that's what they do. That's what they're going to contribute to winning. You don't want to go overboard and end up messing the team up.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to our next topic. Although I do want to mention this comic because I think it's funny. Basically, Kayayu, I don't know, Kayayu, said Kenny, Bam will be LeBron paraphrased.
Hey, I mean, 6'9", 250, playmaker, athletic. You never know. You know. But hey, I'm here to push agendas.
All right, so our next topic I think we're going to go to is we're going to talk about some trades because obviously trade deadline is what, in a week, 8 days from now? Yeah, it's 8 days from now.
Yeah.
So listen, I can go on a whole rant about it. I don't know if I want to or not. I'm thinking about it. I'll think about it if I want to go on a rant or not.
If it comes out, it comes out.
But I do want to go over some things that I see on the time a lot between Heat fans. There's one player in particular that they really want. Obviously, there was some news today with Bradley Beal. I don't even know if it's news anymore because at this point, I don't even think he ever wants to leave Washington. The report that I saw today. The first report I saw today is that Washington's looking to trade for both Domantas Sabonis, and then they're also looking to trade for the guy from Pistons. What's his name? No, Jeremy Grant.
Oh, Pistons. My bad.
Yeah. So I guess they're trying to add basically another player that they could add to kind of swing Bradley Beal to sign his extension this summer because he's up for the Supermax contract. He's a free agent basically if he opts out, but he also is eligible to sign a Supermax with Washington. So Heat fans think that he's really available. I don't even believe it, but if he was, I did the math today. I'm not going to name names, but someone said that the Heat could make a trade for Bradley Beal that doesn't include their three big guys, their three big salaries. So obviously we're not talking about Duncan. We're not talking about Tyler. Those are pretty much given, I think, if they ever had to make this trade. But the three guys that people don't want to trade, I think are only three contracts that need to be used in order to make this trade even like entertaining the thought that they can make a deal right now this season because they're hard capped. Let's not forget this team is hard capped, meaning that they cannot go $6 million over the luxury tax. Right now they're barely under 500,000 as is under the luxury tax. So you're talking that they have maybe wiggle room of like 6.5 million if they decide to go over luxury tax. That's first and foremost. I don't even know if Mick Harrison even wants to go over luxury tax this season whatsoever. But let's say they did. Here's what would happen, and I'm going to get this PowerPoint up that I was working on this afternoon. I actually need to close the tweets. But basically, I did the math on what it would cost for Miami in terms of salary. What would it take if they decided to trade none of the three superstars or three stars that are on this team? And I'm talking about Bam, Jimmy, and Lowry. So let's get this up. And I need to switch back to Mutter screen. You can tell I haven't produced as much as I probably should.
It's all right. You're rusty.
All right. So on my screen, we got the spreadsheet. If you can't see too much, I'm sorry, but I'll read it to you. But it's the best I can probably do right now because it's crammed in. There's a lot of information crammed in. So at the very top, I basically just made the trade happen already. I was able to make it work on Trade Machine. So Trade Machine deal, I could probably get this up too, actually. Let me actually do that. I'm gonna switch between the screen. I'm gonna go back and forth. So on Trade Machine, the package that I think would have to work, and it's not even a great package to be honest, but let's just hypothetically speaking, right? Mm-hmm. Hypothetically speaking, say the Heat decide they want to trade for Bradley Beal, and they're like, and they call Washington, hey, I want to make a trade for Bradley Beal, but the only players I want to trade are none of the top three guys that I have, none of the guys that might be on the All-Star team this year. So what's Washington going to ask for? Let me try to get this up again. There. I had it up.
For sure it's Tyler.
For sure it's Tyler. And then for sure it's Tyler, for sure it's Duncan. The other two contracts going to have to be PJ for sure. PJ has a $7 million salary that basically needs to be used in order to make salaries match. And then the last thing I need to add is basically just whatever minimum salary guy that they have. That's the minimum they can do in order to make this trade work. So you're talking about a 4-for-1 trade, which basically never really happens in the NBA unless you're talking about a multi-team trade, which at that point, then you're asking for a lot more than just a simple straight up 1-for-1, like a 2-team trade. When you're going into 3 teams and stuff like that, especially when you're going with guys like KZ Akala, who you have to salary dump to some team, because I don't think Washington really wants him. The only 2 players they really want in this trade, I think, if I'm Washington, is Duncan and Tyler. And they might not even want Duncan. They probably just want Tyler.
Yeah.
So let's just say we just need the salaries to match first and foremost. PJ Tucker's not going to want to stay in Washington. So we have to find a trade team. We have to basically find a team that would want PJ unless they want to buy him out. So that's first and foremost. The second part is KZ Akpala. I don't think he's even a valuable asset right now to trade, and they kind of need his salary because he has the highest minimum salary of anyone else on this team. Basically, anyone else that's below him is making about almost $200,000 less than him. And when I get to the numbers of how tight these numbers are going to work in order to trade just these guys in order to bring Beal in, it's very tight. It's not a pretty move. And in fact, I don't think I would ever make this trade because you can't replace PJ in any of the scenarios that I have. But the scenario I do want to show, and I'll have to stop sharing that for a second, get this next slide up.
And I'm sure, real quick, Brian, while you work on that, I'm sure another fan, somebody who really is horny to trade Duncan and horny for Beal. First of all, Beal has been flirting with other teams and never fucking wants to go anywhere. He's been about his money. He can get one more year at $60 million more by re-upping with the Wizards. That's a big fucking difference in 1 year.
I'm not even talking about any of that, but yes, that is a great point. And it's something that I don't think Beal's ready to give up right now.
Right.
And it's not something Miami could gain if they make a trade for him. It's not like getting bird rights. Where sure, they can re-sign him over the salary cap. That's fine and Danny and all. And yeah, that's something that could help them if they do want to make that trade work. Because obviously, if they don't have his bird rights, they can't go over the salary cap to re-sign him. So yeah, if they really wanted to get. They couldn't just go out and get him in free agency like as a free agent straight up. They would have to do a sign and trade again. And at that point, you still can't go over the hard cap. I mean, it depends what they want to do with the rest of the roster. But you have guys like Caleb, you have guys like Dedmon, and potential other guys that might be up for extensions that you want to probably try to retain. I don't know. It depends on how good they are in the postseason, what Raleigh wants to do in the offseason. But just hypothetically speaking, just for this year, I'm not even talking about the future, but just for this season, this is what it's going to have to take in order to bring him in. So I have it right here at the top. So in order, I have it structured by their salaries. So very top, Jimmy's still the highest paid player on the team. You got Bradley Beal at $33.7 million. Each your second highest. You got Bam and Kyle. Those are your big salaries. Those are your top four salaries. 36, 33 million, 28, 26.9 million for Kyle. Everybody else is on a veteran minimum contract. That's pretty much fucking unheard of. But just hypothetically speaking, this is what's going to have to happen. You got Dedmon making the minimum. You got Gabe making the minimum. You got Markieff making the minimum. You got Max making the minimum. You got Oladipo making the minimum. You got Haslam. And Yurt Evans making a little bit less than the minimum because he has less than 2 years of NBA experience. He's on a debt minimum contract, but it's scaled to just a 1 year experience player. That's why he's at 1.4. I showed you earlier, KZ was making more than 1.6. He was making just about 1.8. That's in this situation, that's like $150,000 that adds up dollar per dollar when they have to basically factor in what needs to come next. Because sure, you can trade those players, those 4-for-1. Like, say they can figure out a way to get these players onto separate teams, and they don't take back any salary. They don't take out anyone else but Bradley Beal. So it's just one player that they're bringing back. What's going to happen is they're going to have to sign at least 13 guys to the roster because that's NBA rules, and it's only 13 guys for 2 weeks. After 2 weeks, you have to add a 14th player to your roster. That is NBA rules per their salary. CBA, their CBA, not salary CBA, just the CBA. So the only contracts they can give out, they can't sign anybody to any exception money, none of that shit. The only thing they can do is sign them to a prorated veteran minimum contract. Obviously, Caleb Martin is going to get one. Right now, he's scheduled to get one in March 25th. That is the date that Miami could give him his contract to play in the playoffs this season. And who knows if they want to negotiate an extension now, but it probably won't happen until free agency next year as a restricted free agent. But just to keep him on the playoff roster, they're going to have to convert him from a two-way contract over into a standard NBA minimum contract. What they can do is convert him to a prorated veteran minimum. He doesn't have to negotiate that. Miami can just do it outright, and he's on the team still. So that's good for Miami. In order to do that, if they make that trade by the deadline, it's February 10th is the deadline. So they need to make this 13-man roster happen right away. They can't just wait until after the All-Star break or some shit like that. No, they need to do it that day. They need to come up with a plan. Hey, NBA, we're making this trade. Sure, we're going to be under the salary cap. And we're also not going to have the minimum rosters, but we have a plan. We're going to bring this guy who was a two-way contract over onto our main roster. So that's fine. You can add him in. If you sign him on February 10th, he's basically eligible to get the prorated minimum for 60 days out of the 174 calendar days in the NBA season. That's $575,580. Cool. So you can bring him in. Your next guy would have to be whoever the fuck they can find that wants to sign a prorated minimum contract that would either want to sign a 10-day, which I think would be more likely in this scenario,
Mario.
Or if they really find somebody that they really want to keep, who knows? Maybe Goran Dragic is a buyout candidate by then, and then he's been traded, and he's also been bought up by the other team that gets traded. Maybe he wants to come back. Say it's Goran. Sure, he could sign a prorated veteran contract, same amount of money as Caleb. Whether it be a February 10th signing for 60 days of 174 calendar year days. Obviously, if it's a 10-day, say it's Chris Silva, for instance, because obviously he's getting fucking 10 days left and right every single day now. If he gets another 10-day contract, but this time he's on the main roster for those 10 days, then he is eligible to actually get the $95,930 on here, which actually is not helpful for the Heat at all. And I'll get to why in a second. But I don't think it would be Chris Silva, but it could be. But my opinion, I don't think it would be. And then I haven't even got to the last part, but the last part is I told you that they have to sign somebody after 2 weeks because this scenario so far, I've only gone to 13 players. And this is what they have to do. Basically, day one, they make this trade for Bradley Beal. So 2 weeks later, they still have to find someone else to bring onto this roster, or else they can't, basically continue playing. You need to find somebody that they can bring off the street, sign onto the team. So another 2 weeks, they got to do the same exact fucking thing. But this time, that prorated veteran minimum gets a little cheaper. It ends up being $441,277. Why? Because instead of playing for instead of playing 60 days out of the 174 calendar days that you're paying him, you're only paying him for 46. And what helps a lot is that it's also during the All-Star break during that time. So I even made a note on here. If they did make that, they would only be missing about 4 games without a 14th man on the roster. And obviously, you still have 2-way contracts that you could sign. So if they convert Caleb, they can sign a 2-way guy. That doesn't impact their salary cap whatsoever. But just putting it out there, like it's not a pretty look. Now, and I haven't even finished. Like, just because I laid this out this way, it's not even feasible still under the salary cap because I'm still $43,000 over the hard cap. So this is where Plan B actually has to kick in. The only way to make this work, and you could still sign these guys to prorated veteran minimums, you have to sign that 10-day. And the only 10-day that you can sign has to be 2 straight 10 days to a player that's basically played 0 years in the NBA. And they make $53,176. So basically a player like Marcus Garrett, who hasn't played a full NBA season, if they wanted to, they could sign him even though he's fucking hurt. He had season-ending surgery. They could sign him today if they wanted to and basically pay him 2 weeks to basically do, or 20 days, 20 NBA calendar days to do nothing. And they could make the money work under the hard cap, still be over the luxury tax, but they're under the hard cap. And they could make the trade for Bradley Beal, but then you're stuck with, a player that's not going to play for you for 20 days because unless they find someone from their G League they really want to bring up that hasn't played any NBA games, so it can't be Mario Chalmers. It's going to be somebody that's never played a full NBA season. They make $53,000 for each of those 2 10-day contracts, so over $106,000 they'll end up making. And then they sign that player prorated till the end of the season. And then they'll literally be like a couple $1,000s under the hard cap. And that's it. That's your team. Your team is basically Jimmy, Bradley, Bam, Kyle. You don't really have a 4 at this point unless you're counting on Markieff to be healthy and start at the 4. Or you're going to put Caleb as your starting 4 from now on. And then you got Gabe. Obviously, he's good still. Max. You got Victor off the bench. Possibly, I don't know if he wants to start or not, but he can probably start. Maybe put Jimmy at the 4. Who knows what their lineup would look like? And then you still have Omer Yurtseven, and then Haslam's never going to play, but he's still on your team too. And then you got these veteran minimum guys that you have no idea if they're going to be good or not, depending on what they could find in such a short amount of time. Because you're talking, they have to find somebody right away within that trade, and then they have to find somebody within 2 weeks, or you add those 2 weeks and then 20 calendar days. So maybe in like 4 weeks, they can find somebody else that they really want to bring in. And by the time, who knows, there might be a buyout candidate, but also but to note, you have to find somebody that isn't waived. I think it's March 1st or something like. There's a timeline where if a player gets waived after March, I don't want to say it's March 1st or March 15, they're not eligible to make to be on your playoff team. So they got to find somebody that's also not like just waived last minute. Oh, he's a buyout candidate, but he's also not going to be eligible for the playoffs. So it's also something you have to consider.
So I do have to go ahead and I have to, because I didn't know people did the Bradley Beal thing of fucking again today. Because I just tuned out Trade Talk now. Just all you have to do, and Brian's 100% right, and I'm really glad he laid that out, but to everybody else, all you have to do is pay attention. The Wizards just said fucking yesterday that Bradley Beal is not available. They're looking to move Spencer Dinwiddie. That's why the level of player is Domantas Sabonis. Why are we still doing the Bradley Beal thing? We've been doing this since he was with John Wall. He had way more of a reason to want to go somewhere back then. he wasn't the man, quote unquote. On top of that, Bradley Beal is having a horrible fucking year. On top of that, the Wizards have to agree to a trade. On top of that, you have to make the salary work, which Brian just showed is not possible.
It's possible. It's not a favorable, like, that team is not going to get you that far if you don't have a starting four next to Bam and you have Bradley Beal, who's a shitty ass defender. Sure, he's a 3-level scorer. I'm happy for you that you got your 3-level scorer. Okay, what's going to happen when you're on the playoffs and you got to switch onto Kevin Durant and your 4-man is basically Markieff Morris with a bad injured back because they don't have anyone else on the roster?
And like, so again, back to the point of paying attention. You've been complaining about Jimmy Butler in fourth quarters all season, and you want Bradley Beal. Watch a Wizards game. This dude disappears every fourth quarter. That's why the record's like that. People are blaming Spencer Dinwiddie, and sure, he hasn't been up to par. They're blaming Montrez, who's been okay. They're blaming Kuzma, who's actually been pretty great this year. Bradley Beal is not closing games. That's why they've been losing all these fucking years. They haven't had great teams, sure. Their star player hasn't been closing games. That's why he's been on the bench looking sad as fuck with his 50 points. He's getting that shit in the first 3 quarters and disappearing. Let's get over this already.
Not to mention, now I'm going to respond to Carly Tiana real quick because she's asking, so Beal's not playing tonight against the Sixers because he's hurt with a wrist injury. So you're also training for someone that's already hurt. He's had a very poor shooting season from 3. Overall, his efficiency numbers are completely down. He has probably a better roster than he did the last 2 seasons when he was off scoring 30 points per game. But he's hurt with a wrist injury. You need the shooting. If you're trading Duncan, PJ, pretty much the best 3-point shooter right now percentage-wise, and Tyler, and you're trading him for a guy that's not even shooting that well this season, good fucking luck.
So you're gonna give up your whole team for a dude who's not shooting well because you're upset at a dude who's not shooting well because he's making $15 million a year, and you have to add all that bullshit to the trade to make that $15 million work, and that doesn't tell you that $15 million is not a lot of money in the first place. What the fuck are we doing? What are we doing? Why are we still talking about this? Why are we still doing a Bradley Beal thing after all these years? It's not possible. He does not want to. He's not leaving $60 million on the table.
And then not to mention anything else, but you're expecting Mickey Harrison to now start paying the repeater tax 2 seasons earlier than he probably was planning to. Because they're trying to avoid the luxury tax this season. They're set up to. They're perfectly set up to avoid luxury tax this season and even next season, I think. Because the salary cap is going up. I believe it's going up an extra 6%. I did the math. I'm not going to pull it up. It's on my phone in my notes somewhere. I'll tweet it out later if you want to see it on my Twitter feed. But just putting it out there, the Heat are basically positioned not to pay luxury tax this season and next season until Tyler's extension kicks in 2 years from now. When his number goes up, whatever he gets signed to, that's when that clock starts, when they start paying the luxury tax. And if they're a luxury tax team, I believe 3 of the 4 NBA seasons that they're playing basically towards the end of Jimmy's contract because he's going to get paid a shit ton of money. And that's pretty much the last season of both Kyle and I think Bam's contract is also at that point. Yeah, they're going to be repeater tax teams. And also in the same fucking summer that they want to go after guys like Jason Tatum and Donovan Mitchell.
And at some point when having these conversations, when you realize there's no way the other team is going to say yes, leave the conversation alone. The Wizards, you think the Wizards are giving up their best player, I'll say it, since Gilbert Arenas, and Gilbert Arenas didn't have as long of a run. You think they're giving him up to rebuild. That would be the whole reason they give him up, because they want to rebuild. And the return you think they want is 36-year-old PJ Tucker? What are we talking about?
Tyler is pretty much the only guy, and they don't even have, they have picks they could send, but they have to work a trade still with Oklahoma City to remove the protections. So who knows what Oklahoma's like? If Oklahoma City finds out, hey, we need to send these first-round picks to Washington, Oklahoma City is going to try to fuck Pat Riley in the ass because they want to go after Bradley Beal.
And the Wizards are one of the worst teams in the league with Bradley Beal. So why do they have to give him up to rebuild?
No, and
what are we doing? What are we doing?
And Kenny brought up a point I wanted to make that PJ, they're not going to want PJ. They're not going to want Duncan Robinson. So you're going to have to flip those guys to other teams and expand this trade. That's not going to happen. That's too elaborate of a trade. That's going to be a 3-4 team trade, like Brian brought up, and it's gonna take too long. You're not going to get to the deadline. So Bradley Beal isn't happening. We've established it.
The only way it's happening, I've said this already. The only way you're getting any of these guys that are all-stars, 3-level scorers, any 3-level scorer is an all-star, basically, because there's no 3-level scorer that isn't an all-star.
Yeah.
Right? So the only way that's going to happen is you have to trade either Bam, Jimmy, or Lowry. Who are you trading out of those three?
And the Heat brought in PJ Tucker specifically to win. What the fuck has Bradley Beal ever won?
Yeah.
What has he ever won? With John Wall, they had good teams. We're not going to sit here and pretend just because the Wizards are in a bad market that they've always had bad teams.
Yeah.
They've had solid rosters. What has Bradley Beal ever won? Has Bradley Beal ever been out of the first round, matter of fact?
Probably not. I don't think so.
Probably not. So they're going to give up PJ Tucker, who's coming right off of a championship, who fits the team perfectly, who fits the culture, who's leading the league in three-point percentage, who's one of the best defenders in the league, who's the perfect defender, the exact type of defender they want, who can guard 1 through 5 somewhere, can switch everything. You got to trade that for Bradley Beal because he scores a lot of points. Not in the fourth quarter. Remember that. Like I said, you're mad at Jimmy Butler, who's not bad in fourth quarter, but he makes a couple of bad plays, and now get the ball out of his hands. Give it to Bam, who hasn't proven a fucking thing as far as taking games over. He's done that shit 3 to 5 times in his whole career. So you want to give all that up. You want to give all that up for Bradley Beal because he scores points. And what else? And what else? We just saw what happens with the point of attack defense. We just saw what the team looks like with guards who can't defend. And you bring in one of the worst guard defenders in the league because he scores a lot of points. But you don't watch Wizards games, so you don't understand when those points are coming. You don't know when those points are coming. They're not coming in fourth quarters in crunch time. That Raptors game, that Boston game, the Raptors game before that, they're just so mad about and they're questioning the team about. Bradley Beal doesn't do a fucking thing about.
Bradley Beal is shooting 28% from 3 in the fourth quarters, 27 in the third, 26 in the second. He's only shooting 37% in the first quarter.
He does not help. What is this fucking obsession with him after he said time and time again that he's not leaving Washington?
Exactly. And so let's talk about the other trades. So Duncan Robinson, 84th highest salary in the league. 84th. He's making fucking $1 million according to Heat Twitter. 84th in the league. Let's talk about we do a 1-for-1. Let's talk about the guys in his range. We got right around there, Thaddeus Young. Let's with Thaddeus Young. Oh, no, we don't like Thaddeus Young. Let's go Patrick Beverley. Oh, Patrick Beverley's not good enough. Let's go Marcus Smart. Oh, Marcus Smart has a longer contract and makes more money than Duncan Robinson is going to make. Oh, that's probably not going to happen. It doesn't help the shooting. Malik Beasley. You really want to deal with Malik Beasley? Oh, not going to happen.
Let's go to fucking prison.
Yeah,
I wasn't going to say it.
Dorian Prince, exactly. Derek White, that'd be a fun pickup. Spurs aren't going to do that. Will Barton, they're not going to do that. That doesn't make sense. They're not going to do that. They're going to win now. DeJounte Murray, they're not going to do that. Norman Powell, they're not going to do that. Marcus Morris, all right, that's been one of the favorite rumors. If Marcus Morris is available, we're going to get outbid for Duncan Robinson and picks. We barely have picks to go. Are we going to fucking sell out for Marcus Morris? Marcus Morris helps the team because he's a two-way guy and he's a good shooter and he can play the 4 role if you need to move PJ.
We literally have Marcus Morris at home.
For less money and better.
Lowry.
I don't know about better, but at least for his value, what he's being paid for, yes, it's better in terms of the value.
Let's go, because I've been seeing. Okay, we got to go ahead and we may be able to get rid of KZ and Markeith. Markeith hasn't played since he suffered a spinal cord injury. Who is touching that?
It's a whiplash injury, but it's not.
What are we in the Christian Wood stuff? So when you're so horny for trades that you want to trade Tyler or whatever the case is, your point is, we can't waste Jimmy's window. We can't develop a guy. We can't worry about. Tyler was a head case because he hung out with his girlfriend, but Christian Wood's going crazy every other night, and he's cool. We got time to develop Christian Wood, who doesn't play defense worth shit. But when you want to trade Tyler, it's we can't waste Jimmy's window. What are these people talking about?
The math's not mathing.
What are these people talking about?
It's ridiculous. Like, look, it's okay to look for a trade and to want your team to be better. And if there's a trade available, yeah, the Heat should try to improve the team, of course. But these trades and these this obsession with trading Duncan for something that's not going to make the team better. You're going to go all in on making the team slightly better, slight change on that, so you can stop. We all know Duncan's not going to finish his contract with the Heat because it doesn't make sense because Tyler's due for an extension soon. Yeah, like maybe they go in for a Bradley Beal or something else. But like Brian pointed out, you're paying minimum for your fifth starter at that point, and the rest of your roster is all minimum players, and you're trying to win with that. Jimmy's playing 55, 65 games at most for the rest of his career, guys.
And we've seen his team can't even get their three top players to play more than 10 games so far this season. They haven't even played in the last 2 months, and you're expecting all four of these guys to basically play every night because God forbid we have to fucking rely on everyone else on this roster to cover up for that. For not having PJ Tucker and Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson on the floor.
And I'm sorry to cut you off, Brian. And to the people who use their weird ass Duncan obsession and they try to make this excuse of they have to pay Tyler later. I've been watching Miami Heat basketball for a long time. For the people who don't know my origin story with the Heat came over and did community work at my preschool. That's when I became a Heat fan. I've been watching a lot of Heat basketball in my whole life, right? In the past 20 years, the Heat have been a bad team twice. So there was that little era. They got Karamba, and then they got D-Wade. So in the past 20 years, in 2002, they were bad. Or 02, 03, they drafted D-Wade, playoff team. D-Wade got hurt in 08, playoff team, or at least fringe playoff a couple of years after that. Why are we so concerned about what this team is going to do in the future? They're not going to be bad. As long as Pat Riley and Andy Edsberg are in the front office, they're not going to be bad. Just relax with the fucking trade shit. They're title contenders right now. If they do make a trade, Brian just showed there's nothing really available. But if they manage to work some miracle,
the superstar is not available realistically for his Heat team. The only thing that they can make trade is maybe if they want to move Duncan's contract for whatever they think they could get for him at this point, because I know they looked into Lowry marketing, but I think it was just to see what his market value looks like right now across the league. It's not because they wanted Lowry marketing, just want to see because he has a very similar contract, except his contract ends 1 year sooner. So it helps in terms of paying luxury tax in the future or getting off and expiring 1 year sooner. So I think that's the only reason why they even looked into Lowry marketing, not because they really wanted him, but because hey, he happens to have a contract that ends sooner. Same with Christian Wood. Who knows if they really want Christian Wood? Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But it's the same contract situation that they were looking at a contract that looked like, hey, it seems like the same range as Duncan Robinson. Would you be interested if we trade Duncan Robinson for his contract, even though his ends 1 year sooner than the guy that we're trying to trade you that doesn't end 1 year sooner? So yeah, you have to pay more money for an extra season for a guy you probably don't even want on your team to begin with.
Let's talk about the basketball. Those guys, besides Morris, I've seen Lowry Markkinen and Christian Wood the most. We have a problem with Jimmy and Bam getting in each other's way, so we're going to throw in another big man that needs a lot of playing time and minutes to get in the ball inside.
They could stretch the floor, but
but they also are we just going to make them spot up guys?
But at that point, I mean, Duncan Robinson's also a spot up shooter too. So like, what's their role really going to be?
You can move. We just said earlier, Bam, Jimmy, and Kyle haven't played together in 2 months. A team is struggling with injury, and your solution to that is Lowry marketing. Pay attention to the league, please.
Ira says that Kyle Lowry is in San Antonio with the Heat.
So he's playing.
That's the solution.
If he traveled, he's playing.
You know what the solution is, guys? And I'm on the show here. The solution is you get Kyle Lowry back, you give Victor Oladipo back, and Jimmy Butler doesn't have to do everything he wants in the fourth quarter because he doesn't have to have the ball in his hands. He can do other things.
Exactly. And if the Heat don't fucking win this season, oh well, they'll win sometime soon. They're fucking playing well. They have the right guys in charge. They have some pieces here. They're going to try to win it. If oh my God, Kyle Lowry gets hurt and we don't win, are you guys going to be coming back to this fucking conversation? Oh, should have traded Duncan Robinson. Like this fucking obsession with these trades, and going all that. They're trying to fucking win. They just haven't been healthy. If they're not healthy, they're not winning shit.
And so, and just everybody, and just when these reports come out, look at where they're coming from and have a fucking mind of your own, right? And so when it was, Bam, stop everything, stop the presses. Giannis is coming to Miami. When we had just established that Giannis and Bam have the same agent and they're his only two clients. So when those three people didn't get in the room and decide, hey, let's all make less money, instead of looking at ourselves like, hey, maybe that was a little ridiculous of a thing to believe, it's actually Nicole Moss's fault for 2 years. No, think for yourself. The shit wasn't about to happen. It wasn't about to happen. So this stuff from now is not about to happen. These Christian Wood reports came from Houston. Why would Houston not say Miami wants this guy to get his value up? If Miami wants a guy, and when they said that, by the way, Caleb Martin was looking like fucking Jimmy Butler. And so, yeah, if I work for a front office on another team, I'm going to lie and spread it around the league and say Miami wants this guy because it's going to look like this shit has diamonds in it. Please come take him. That's what's going to happen. That's what keeps happening. That's what people keep fucking falling for. And this watch this stuff. Like I said, one day they said we need to get rid of Spencer Dinwiddie. The second day they said, hey, everybody's available, but not Bradley Beal. The third day they said, hey, we may be interested in Domantas Sabonis. And at some point, Heat fans heard, hey, that gets Bradley Beal to Miami. What the fuck? Read. Just read what you're looking at, please. And stop annoying us with the shit because come on. None of it makes sense. And it's frustrating because of the level of stupidity just in general. My biggest pet peeve is stupidity. And just being willfully stupid at this point.
Yeah. And I'm loving Ryan says in the chat, Keith and KZ for a warm body makes sense for me. The Heat fans are obsessed with making trades that make sense for Heat fans, but doesn't make sense for the other fucking team. Obsessed with that shit. I complain about Duncan Robinson fucking 82 games out of 82 games, but every fucking team is gonna fucking trade me their leading scorer for this guy. Think about it, guys. They don't have trades to attach. You're horny for your 7. You might have to attach him to get to make that Duncan trade a little bit more feasible for
enticing. Yeah,
enticing. And it's just not realistic, guys. And shit. I mean, we talk about trades and shit that happens every year. There's always a trade that we're like, oh shit, I didn't see coming. Maybe Andy and Pat pull something out of their ass, but we got no control over that shit. The team is playing well for the most part. Lowry's about to come back. They're going to get their shit together. Let's fucking focus on having a fucking good team for once.
And people's favorite thing in the world to bring up, right, is, but just because they have a good team doesn't mean they won't make a trade. They did it going into 06. Yeah, I remember 06. I was 14 years old. I loved that 05 team. That was possible because they had a really good team. They made the conference finals, and they traded for a bunch of guys that a bunch of teams thought was too old to contribute. That's why they were able to do that. Pat Riley knew better. Shaq and Gary Payton's history from the Lakers helped that happen. Gary Payton wanted to come out of here. Gary Payton was actually about to retire. Shaq knew Gary Payton had something left in the tank. That relationship brought him over here. Stop bringing up 06. Just stop. That was the biggest trade in NBA history. It's not gonna fucking happen again.
And at the deadline, that shit that happened in the offseason. Maybe something happens in the offseason if they don't win. Yeah, but Kenny, the biggest thing that the 05 team saw was that, and I love that team too. The 05 team saw that they needed depth. Yes. They needed depth. That's why they did that trade. They traded their third best player in EJ so they can get a starting point guard, a starting small forward, the 6-man, and then they signed Gary and they signed Alonzo, and they helped that depth for that team. This team has depth. Their fucking starting point guard is hurt. Is going through some personal reasons right now. He's coming back. This team hasn't played together. The fucking 5 best players on this team have not played together since the fucking first week of the season, basically.
Like it just doesn't make sense, man. It doesn't make sense. There's no trade available. Why are we clamoring for Dorian Finney-Smith? What are we doing? Because you're upset when you're quite not upset. You're concerned because you have to pay Tyler Hero, but you're gonna get Dorian Finney-Smith on a rental. You're gonna give up one of your best shooters when your 2 best players can't shoot worth shit. I don't care about Duncan's fucking slumps. Shooters go through slumps. Watch a basketball game for once. Pay attention to the season. You'll see that happens. Steph Curry is having the worst year of his career since his ankle injuries. That's aside the point. So you want to get rid of him and you want to bring in Dorian Finney-Smith as a rental on a team who's looking to win now because he's having a good year. And then you have to go ahead and probably get rid of him to pay Tyler anyway. So you're going to just have Duncan out in the wind somewhere because you're weird and you're obsessed. And Duncan's the player you have to pick on this year because it was fun with Hassan Whiteside. And you have this weird urge to try to be Seth Trilly and steal his humor, even though it's not funny when you do it. And so now you have to go ahead and just do a bunch of shit that doesn't make sense.
Exactly.
What is happening?
What are we doing, guys?
What are we doing? Please just watch basketball. If a trade happens, great. I trust the front office. But other than that, just fucking cut that shit out.